I mean, we can switch to the Mad Lions G2 series now because that game one was really great, guys. I thoroughly enjoyed that game one. Credit to Melzet, by the way. I know we talked a lot about Striker, and like obviously there were questions about replacing Mac. But Melzet, I mean, you look at this draft. This was one of the most fun drafts I have seen in a while. Like, G2 has had some fucking banger drafts throughout this playoffs, but the way that Mad Lions Koi played the red side in the draft and just got the better of G2 was really exciting to watch. Because I don't think, if I had to guess, Thorin, I don't think that Broken Blade practiced Akali, and I don't think that Caps practiced Twisted Fate. Just watching that game, I have a feeling that maybe they weren't the most ready for what was going on in this draft.
Take the Zach, but just put on your jungle, wasn't it? It's like, okay, we're taking your pick, Broken Blade, but we don't have to ban it. That was clever, I thought, yeah.
Yeah, so in the first 4 picks on red side, they had Zach and Rel. So you don't know whether Zach is top or jungle or Rel is support or jungle. So you're kind of just sitting there and you want the Twisted Fate, right? And so, okay, like, you see what's coming out of this draft. You don't want to play Twisted Fate into Orianna. That's not a great matchup for TF. And so you want to kind of to play him in the top side. I don't know what the Zach TF matchup is like, but I would think it's probably okay, at least for Twisted Fate. But what was the real masterstroke here is like, so when you see the TF coming in, right, and they finish their draft by having this flexibility in the way that you've picked your champions, by picking the Yasuo into the top lane, it basically means you cannot play the Twisted Fate in that lane because Yasuo will just win wall, pick a card, and then all in you. So you really get mega fucked because Windwall just blocks all of his abilities, and he can just block your CC, dash through a minion wave, and just trade extremely effectively with you, right? He, as we saw later in this game, you can win wall, pick a card at melee range, basically. Like, so he can't do anything. It's a terrible matchup. So then you're dealing with a scenario, well, now we have to play fucking Akali. I guess we have to play at topside. That's not an awesome matchup for Akali either. And so then we have to play Twisted Fate into Orianna. When you see pick a card, Orianna just shields herself, and that's it. Right? So it's not an awesome matchup for Twisted Fate. So this is a really great draft where they forced G2 into a really uncomfortable situation. And Thorin, to Melzet's credit, how often do we see Dylan Falco get like
almost never in an LEC finals? This is when he like the joke is that might be the first guy ever, except when he had Reckless, to fucking be able to get this guy in the draft. It was ridiculous, wasn't it?
Yeah, and by the way,
and also even more gangster bit, they then won the game. Yeah. That's why it actually wants mad hype. You're like, holy shit, is this possible? Is this going to be like this the whole way? Sadly,
and won the game very convincingly too. And not only that, Thorin, but it's not like, oh well, he got, nicely done, Mad Lions Koi. You got some cool lane matchups, like you got a bunch of winning lanes because of your cleverness in the draft. It's not just that the Yasuo was such a good pick there. It's the fact that look at what Yasuo was paired with. Look what can trigger Yasuo's ult. Yes. Orianna ult, Zach ult, Rel engage. Like, he has so many ways to get multi-man ults in this situation.
Dude, even if the fucking ADC ults, then he can just do all your ult on them as well. Like, it's fucking ridiculous. Like, everything just helps him get help, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's mad.
So basically, it's like mad AoE knockups or knockbacks that trigger Yasuo ult. So, by the way, if you group any team fight, you're going to get at least a probably 2-3 player AoE CC that's going to trigger a Yasuo ult. So that's great for you right there. How does Akali live in Shroud, Thorin? There's like fucking tornadoes going through there. There's shockwaves going through there. Chain of Corruption can be shot in there. Rel engage can go in there. Yep. Zach engage can go in there. How do you stay alive if you're Akali? There is no hiding because these are all untargeted CC abilities. So Akali's going to have a massive problem. And I do want to give some credit to G2 because in this game, they really fucked up with the first TF ult by diving too far. Because remember, TF is actually AP in this game, not AD like we've seen it previously in the playoffs.
The OP one,
and he's like at level 6, and they're trying to get Supa, and like Caps appears, and he like throws a card out and like throws the wild cards, and it does no damage. And I look at his items, and he's got like a fucking Doran's ring and a ruby crystal and a sapphire crystal because he's building Rod of Ages. And I'm just like, what did you think you were gonna like 1v1 this guy? Like, no, you're not gonna do that. And then they all die, get a huge deficit. But this is also where G2 is really good, guys, because in spite of G2 being so far behind, they were still running this composition. This is a pick comp. The only way G2 wins this game is by picking people off with Twisted Fate, Nautilus, and Vi before they can group up, because they cannot win a front-to-back team fight. Let me be very clear. They cannot win that. That is impossible compositionally between these two teams. So they actually did do a very good job of intercepting members of Mad Lions Koi. You also get to see why Mad Lions Koi is a rookie team. Because one of the funniest things I thought, Thorin, about this game was a way they almost lost it was that they were sieging tier 1 in the mid lane, and Supa walks up to this turret because they're like, oh, we're so clever. El Yo-Yo is going to be in their raptor pit, and when they come, we will spring the engage trap on them. But the funny thing, Thorin, is they fucking had Twisted Fate. So all Caps did was press R, reveal their trap, teleport in, kill Supa before they could engage, and it nearly cost them the game. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. And even funnier, Thorin, the very next game, they try and run that trap again. And they also, at that time, they actually do lose the game from because G2 is like, we know they're there. They were there in the exact same place in the last game, also with the Zac. And so they just killed them. So, maybe the team composition and strengths really aren't fully drilled into Mad Lions yet, which is understandable, right? One of G2's specialties is like playing to their team composition's win condition, doing the creative shot calling. And that versatility just wasn't there when we saw the same thing from Mad Lions. So they had a good showing, particularly game 1. You still got to see the flaws. G2, I think, fought back about as well as you could possibly ask for, given the deficit and the win conditions of their composition. Like, playing a pick comp from a massive deficit is one of the hardest things to do in League of Legends, because you have no map control. So if you're able to almost kind of get back into it like G2 did, that's very impressive.
By the way, later in the series, I forget which game, might even be game 4, I forget. There was a game where, it was the one where Mickey X kept inting the game, right? But someone made a point on Reddit, and I actually think it's such a banger point, mate. I thought I'd save it for you. They said, because it's kind of true, it's almost like, though, the famous thing, I can't remember who it was who invented that concept. Was it actually Dom who invented the concept of the positive inter, who gave that label? I forget. But basically, it's the idea that, you have players who sort of make action happen. Classically, Hylissang was this player, obviously. And even though you int, it's positive in the sense either you needed to, force a moment in the game, or it makes the actual enemy sometimes tunnel on you, right? The joke is, it's like when Mickey plays Nautilus, he actually does mind game the other team. This is my edition of, I'll give a better characterization than this comment did. Essentially, his joke is he becomes the laser pointer to the cats, because what happens is, cause he hits a couple of times, like a solo queue game, they all get horny, if we see the support, it's a free kill. And then the joke is, it just makes the opponent go in and give you chances to win the game if you're G2. It actually is it's almost part of me wants to believe that is what he's doing consciously. But I will say, Mickey X is so legit. He is one of those players privately, Monty, that has told me that casters and analysts do actually even overrate what he does, and that he says he has watched analysts and people do VOD reviews and be genius by Mickey. Look at the way he did this base thing. He knew he could get a cheater recall off and he could come back with these, and he's I didn't do that at all. I had nothing to do on the map, so I was I'll just go back to base actually. And so the problem is none of these guys really are 700 IQ. They're just really good players, guys. They just play off instinct. So it just happens to work out in his favor if he hits. That's all it is. I wish it was true though that it was planned as some master stroke,
Well, it's all the old Moscow 5 stories over and over again. It's exactly. No, we just hated each other,
Yes. Because that was basically what he told me, is that people would be going way too deep, and he obviously knew this matchup. Well, he's I didn't know that at all. I just fucking picked the champions played.
It was M5's genius was actually just a bunch of Russians punching each other in the face and getting angry at each other and all doing their own thing that worked out randomly for some reason.
Yes.
It's too funny. But yeah, look, G2 wins. Broken Blade has like a fucking mega series, guys. This is kind of.
Did you see, Monty? There was a very interesting thing he said after the final. Did everyone see this? He actually acknowledged himself. He thanked Alfari and said Alfari had been helping him, like almost like positional coaching him with like matchups and stuff. That was a very interesting thing to reveal after you've won the split, isn't it? I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think, and people say like, oh, G2 isn't that good. Guys, G2 is a very good team. G2 is a very good team.
Yeah, especially by the end, they looked up. Yeah,
and the complaints that I hear, like, oh, what about Broken Blade and Yike at international competitions? I keep saying this, but like Broken Blade was their best performing player at MSI last year. That's not a controversial statement. He looked like shit going into MSI and then actually had a good MSI. And Yike is a young player, but now has
2 tournaments, for fuck's sake. It's only his second year, guys. Give him a chance.
So it's only his second year, and also like there's an argument that he was MVP of this series.
Pretty good, yeah.
He was great too. We see that versatility with him. So it's a very well coached team. The individual players are good. Can they hold up internationally? Look, I think that this team can still take games off of very good Asian teams and can take series off of lower kind of like 4th seed, 3rd seed Asian teams. I do think they are that good. That's why I put them 10th on my power rankings.
I'll just say this. This is why I always told Dom this angle that people never truly understand. This is why, in his own way, Perks was the ultimate gangster GM of Europe, because he was like the secret GM of G2. Because I always thought his most genius move ever, Monty, if you think about how history and narratives work, is at the time when Caps had ascended and was on the rival team Fnatic and was probably now, remember at that point, Kirk's had his 4 titles, but it's probably going to end now. This fucking Caps guy's going to run the table and I'm going to come 2nd or 3rd. Maybe I nick the odd one from him and suddenly I'll have my 4. But you know what? If this goes like this, he's won 2 in Fnatic already. Fucking like 3 or 4 years, he's going to have 6, isn't he? He's going to be ahead of me. What if I recruit him, play with him, and we get to share each of the titles during part of his prime? And even though now Caps now will have catched up in terms of splits, it took like 3 or 4 extra years. That's gangster, mate. Where you actually get the guy who would essentially instead of losing 1v1, you just get to draft NASCAR style behind his resume the whole way. And then it's only now years later, and when Perks has done nothing, that finally Caps took over in terms of resume. That's actually genius, because there's a concept that goes in sports now, which is true, by the way, that it's not even you just play directly against your opponent. Now they're all doing all this shit in media where they all push narratives and have their guy and they just try and control the famously people say the reason that Last Dance documentary was made, Monty, is because that was supposedly for real. The story goes that when LeBron won that title over the Warriors and everyone was like, what an insane accomplishment, he beat the best team ever or whatever. Supposedly Michael Jordan just sort of told his guy yeah, get working on that fucking documentary actually, because people were finally saying he might be the greatest basketball ever. And that's all Michael Jordan. He hits activate sleeper agent Last Dance, go. It was like that. So the joke is it's like Perks did that. He saw the future and he was like, you know what, I don't want to be 10 titles behind that. Let me get 4 of those. I'll share those. I think that's gangster.
What still blows my mind about the Last Dance is that they were just sitting on all of that footage for
that's wild, isn't it, mate?
20 plus years.
When I even heard that concept, I thought, it's going to be all scuffed, a bit of a thing from a crowd, or someone had a tiny bit from an interview. The joke is you watch it and you're like, bro, you had the most insane behind the scenes access of everything for 20 plus years. What were you waiting for? This could have been blockbuster at any time in history, couldn't it? If this came out by the way, if this even came out after Michael Jordan retired, we'd have all watched it. It'd been insane, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It was really at all.
That's wild.
I'm thinking how long the series was. That's implied they had loads probably hit the cutting room floor. That was fucking amazing, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
I mean, I'm sure there was some extra spicy stuff in there that wasn't shared as well.
Or maybe, if you think of the timing, that's just when tech solutions became available to fake history. Ooh, but this isn't that sort of a stream, guys. It's League of Legends. Keep moving on. See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.